Notes 5.5, Solving Systems by Elimination, Day 2. So we're going to spend some more time with the method of elimination, which is our third method to solve systems. So before we get started, let's talk about what we look for in order to use elimination. We talked about saying that the x's, the y's, the constants needed to line up. Everything needed to line up, but we were looking for opposites to happen. So we know, if I gave you an example, you know that negative 2x and 2x, those are opposites. You also know that 3 and negative 3 are opposites. Well, what if you have something that's not opposites, and we had to force opposites to happen? Say we had something like a negative x and a negative x. Those aren't opposites. But we learned in order to force the opposites to happen, we could multiply one of them by something in order for the opposites to occur. So in this case, I could multiply this one by a negative 1, and then I end up with positive x and negative x. Now I have opposites. So what if I had something like this? What if I had 2x and 5x? That on the recorder, 2x and 5x, and I need to force the opposites to happen. Now they're both positive, so we know we're going to have to multiply one of them by a negative something. But we can't just multiply by a negative number, because 2x and 5x, somehow they could be related, but we need to force that opposite to happen. So we know something's got to be negative. But watch what I do here. What if I multiply this first one by a negative 5? Then think, what would I need to multiply the 5x by to get the opposite? So let's see, what does this give us? This gives us negative 10x, okay, when I multiply that. So what's the opposite of negative 10x? Hopefully you're saying 10x. So how do I make this 5x become a positive 10x? What do I multiply the 5x by to make it a positive 10x? Hopefully you're saying in your head, multiply by 2, Mrs. Swinson. So now I have 5x times 2, which is now 10x, which are now negative 10x and 10x are opposites. Okay, so we're just kind of playing some number games in order to force the opposites to happen, which will allow us to eliminate, okay, or get rid of. So looking at our example, I've got my system right here, and it says you're going to work with your partners to determine a possible solution to solving the system of equations above. It does not matter if your answer is right or wrong. What matters is that you persevere and take risks. Okay, so we're going to do these together in these notes, but then when you come into class and you're working on the problem sets, you know that you're going to be working in your groups to be able to solve these systems by elimination. So when I look right now at my system, and I still follow those same steps, the x's line up, the y's, and the constants. So that's good. Now I need to look for opposites. So when I look at my x's, I have 4x and 5x. Those aren't opposites. And my y's are 3y and 4y. Now remember, we're looking for opposites to get rid of a variable. Okay, don't look at this negative 1 and this positive 1 and say, oh, those are opposites, I can eliminate those. That's not going to help us. That didn't eliminate an x or a y. Okay, our whole idea is we have to eliminate an x or a y. So I think I'm going to make a decision, and I'm going to say, let's get rid of the x's. You can decide. Okay, you can decide to get rid of the x's or the y's. It doesn't matter. Here's some choice. So I'm going to choose to try to get rid of the x's. So I'm over on the side, I'm going to write my 2 x's. So I've got to force the opposites to happen. So what you do in your head, and you can't see those opposites quickly, multiply the 4 and the 5 together. What is 4 times 5? Hopefully you're saying 20. So I've got to make 20x and negative 20x out of the 4x and the 5x. So I might multiply that first one by 5, because that would give me 20x, right? This is my little, whoops, my little scrap paper over to the side. Okay. That's going to give me 20x. Oh, I'm a mess here. There we go. And now I would have to multiply, in order to get a negative 20x, I'd have to multiply this one by negative 4. So that would give me that negative 20x. So now let's go back over. So that was over here on my scrap paper. Now I've got to go and do this to this system. To force the opposites to happen, I chose to multiply that first equation by 5 and this second equation by negative 4. When you're doing your multiplying, make sure that you put parentheses around your entire equation so you don't make a mistake with your distributing. So in this case, we had to multiply both equations by something, and now we've got to rewrite both equations because we have to distribute. So I'm going to draw my little distributing, and I'm going to multiply that first equation, everything by 5. So my new looking, I'll talk about that in a second. My new looking equation is 20x plus 5 times 3y is 15y. I'm just distributing, equals 5 times negative 1 is negative 5. I just made an equivalent equation. It looks different, but it's still the same. Okay, it's still equal. Now let's do the same thing with this bottom equation. Negative 20x minus 16y and equals a minus 4. Now everything lines up and I can see opposites to eliminate. There we go. I can eliminate my x's. So now let's just add positive 15y minus 16y is a negative 1y. Negative 5, negative 4 gives me negative 9. If I need to continue to solve for y, I've got to divide by negative 1, and I get y is positive 9. So I found one of my variables. Now I've got to find the other. I've got to find the y, or excuse me, the x. I've got the y. So what do? Plug that 9 back into one of the originals. You got to go way back up to one of the originals. I'm going to just choose the first original, 4x plus, remember I found y, so 3 times 9 equals negative 1. Now solve your equation. Plus 27 equals negative 1. We're just solving for x. Phew! Mr. Anderson just came flying into my room and I got nervous he was going to say something and be silly. I had to pause it there for a second. All right, so what do we got here? 4x equals negative 28. We divide by 4. X equals negative 7. So now I've got my x and my y. Let's write our solution. We've got x, comma, y. There's my solution. Let's try another one. So this one probably isn't as crazy. Just kind of looking at it. So my x's, my y's, my constants, everything lines up. Let's look for opposites. I don't see any opposites, but I bet if I multiply just that first equation by something, I could get opposites to happen. So if I multiply that first equation, I'm going to choose the first equation, and I think I'm going to get rid of the y's. Again, it's your choice. You decide what do you want to get rid of. I'm going to choose this time to eliminate the y's. So if I want to get opposite y's, right now I have a 1y, this is my scrap paper, over a negative 9y. So what's the opposite of negative 9y? It's positive 9y, so I've got to multiply that first equation by positive 9. Again, make sure you put parentheses around your whole equation, and now let's distribute to get a new equation. I don't know what 14 times 9 is off the top of my head, so I'm going to go back to my scrap paper. 6 and 3, 126. There we go. I don't need to do anything to that bottom equation. Now I can see my opposites with my y's. Cross them out, we eliminated them. So what is 9x plus 9x? It's 18x's. And then 126 and 36, let's see, I don't know that off the top of my head. That's going to be 162 divided by 18. X equals, I'm going to pause because I got to do that division. I don't know that one. All right, I got it. X equals 9. All right, so we're halfway there with this one. So now let's find the y that goes with that x. I'm going to have to erase my scrap paper, so I've got a little bit more room to write. Let's take that x and plug it back into one of the originals. I'm going to go back into that first original just because it's a little simpler. And now I'm solving for y. Y equals 5. My final solution, 9, 5. All right, let's look at this last one. Oh, when I say to myself, do my x's, my y's, and my constants line up? And they do not. So we need to do some rearranging. I like this one, x's, y's, constants. So let's do the same thing with that top equation. Let's get the x's, the y's, and the constants to line up. So I'm going to rewrite it so I can work with it. So if I want this x to come first, I'm going to move it over to the other side. Well, in order to move it, I've got to add it to the other side. So I've got 2x plus 3y equals 5. Now, do I have the order I need? X's, y's, constants. Boom, got it. Let's rewrite it underneath, okay? Let's see where I want to write it. I think I might put it right underneath here. Plus 3y equals 5. Okay? Now everything lines up nicely. X's, y's, constants. And we're going to have to get something to eliminate. So I think I might choose, I don't know, this time I think I might get rid of the x's. So over on my scrap paper, I'm going to say to myself, okay, 5x and 2x. I might multiply this one by -2 and this one by +5. Check it. Does that give you opposites? This would give me -10x, and this would give me a +10x. So I've got it. Well, that first one I'm going to multiply by -2, and this one I'm going to multiply by 5. So let's rewrite, distribute. Okay. -10x minus 8y equals -32. I'm going to erase my scrap paper down here just to give us more space. And now I'm going to distribute for the second equation. Now, do I have opposites? I do. -8y plus 15y is 7y equals -7. Divide by 7, and y equals -1. Now let's find the x, and we'll be done. I think I'm going to go into, I don't know, the second equation. Okay, I might substitute into the second equation, meaning this one, in order to find my x that goes with that y. Let's move this up a little bit. Okay, so 5x plus 4 times the y I just found equals 16. 5x minus 4 equals 16. I'm going to add 4. 5x equals 20. I'm going to divide by 5, and x equals 4. Now my x is 4, my y is -1. As a point, there's my solution. Okay? Again, rewind, watch parts of it again if you need to, but we're going to spend some more time practicing elimination, where we have to multiply both equations by something in order to force the elimination to happen.